Hey everyone, Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Hello Rush Nation and welcome back to the 5 Yard Rush flagship show. Dan here, Murf here, no guest today. What we thought we'd do is open the show up a little bit to you guys. So if you're listening, got some questions or some fantasy advice, just want to come on and talk some football with us, drop Murf at Murf_NFL ADM, and he'll get you the link, get you in here. We can have a chat. We'll see who's about, see who wants to come on, and come and join us on the pod. So in between that, we and Murf are going to go for a bit of sleeper ADP, round by round. We're going to have a look at who we feel is real good steals at value round by round and who we'll be looking at picking up where we can. But yeah, again, want to join us at Murf_NFL, drop him a DM, come and join us for a conversation. Murf, how are you, sir? You well?
I'm getting there. I wouldn't say I'm 100%. I wouldn't say I'm anywhere close to 100%, but I am slowly recovering. I've got a big day at the hospital tomorrow. Had some setbacks this week health-wise, so it's been a really frustrating time. But we're still here. We're still grinding. It's fantasy season, so we play hurt. You know, I'm doing my best Zeke Elliott impression here, and just trying to churn some yards and make some plays. And we'll see what happens over the coming days and weeks, and hopefully I get some good news tomorrow and can go back to recovery as opposed to fighting. But yeah, please join the show. Anyone that just wants to talk, it could be about anything, right? You could be brand new to fantasy football and want to know what's some good strategy. You might want to talk about some
particular
player. You might want to get some thoughts on training camp, contract situations. You might just want to share some using something that you found out in the last couple of weeks you find interesting, and
you might want to quiz Murf on a certain section in the book that you didn't quite understand. And
it could be absolutely anything fantasy football related. It's open mic for that reason, right? It could be dynasty, could be auction, could be whatever you want to do. You know, we might not have the answers,
but we will find them.
But we'll just talk it out. We'll talk it out, and we'll come to something. And you know, the way I always think with these things is, if you have a question and you have something, then someone else has that same question. There's someone else somewhere that wants to know the answer to that. So, you know, we can just try and put the world to rights tonight. But whilst we're waiting for people, and if you do, like I said, just the handles there at Murf_NFL, just drop in there. It's much easier than the podcast handle because the podcast handle's got loads of stuff. Jack, good evening. How are you? I hope you're well. But if, you know, and I know people are shy. Don't be shy. We're just two chaps here. Just come on and just have a giggle. It's all it's about. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, 2 minutes, doesn't matter. Just come on and have a laugh. And yeah, in the meantime, let's just go through some ADP stuff because, you know, I always think with the ADPs, this is the time of year.
Before we get into ADP, Murf, football's back. We had a Hall of Fame game. We had a live televised game of semi-competitive football. That feels good, right?
Yeah, I mean, any time there's football is good. I'd argue any time the Jags play, it's less good. But
well, my next question was, having watched it, did we learn anything? I already know the answer to this question, but I'm the host, you're the expert. Did we learn anything from watching it?
It's one thing I'm going to say about this game, and there's only one thing, and all the fallout of this game was Josh Jacobs got a lot of work. What's going on? Just don't worry about it. A lot of people are really concerned that Josh Jacobs got work. Oh, starters don't play in first preseason games. Do you know what? Josh McDaniels and anyone to do with the Patriots organization just don't do things like anybody else. Yeah. So just don't worry about it. Josh McDaniel just does not do things by the standard of anybody else. So I don't care that Josh Jacobs played. I don't care he got a lot of reps. I don't think it's significant. I don't think it's important.
We only saw last year Aaron Rodgers didn't play a snap in preseason and really struggled week one out the gate. So
exactly. If anything, it's I think a lot of people saying, "Oh, he's going to be traded. This is weird." It's White.
We also don't know he didn't go to him and say, I don't feel quite up to speed with stuff. Do you mind if I play a fair bit to get myself into the run of things?
It literally, there's about 500 reasons he could have played. Yeah. And it could be that. It could be, I just want to see how I feel. It could be, he could be one of these players that goes, do you know what? I just like playing. I just want to play. Yeah. Some people do. Some people just like to play. You know, you forget we've got the Premier League season. The Premier League season kicked off this season. Good Austin Waters' job. People have got to remember, right? You know, we just kicked off the Premier League season, and the teams that looked really good on opening day of the Premier League season, guess what? Their continuity through pre-season, a lot of their starters played a lot of games, and you could tell. And then you had these teams that were very disrupted in pre-season, who didn't get a lot of time together, and guess what? Didn't play well. It's not. You know, it's never a bad thing just because, you know, we've got into this culture that, oh my God, if starters play in the first 2 preseason games, they're not starters. You know, the NFL is a constant evolving machine with coaches that are consistently going to do things that are very different from the norm. Yeah. And so I don't read anything into this until there's something to read into it. Now, if we see week 1, Josh Jacobs is not listed amongst active participants and he's a healthy scratch, then all of a sudden alarm bells start ringing. Until that happens, I don't think anyone's got anything to worry about. I think it's just a case of, I think it's never a bad thing for players to get reps. And at the running back position, it's just about health. The concern is obviously he gets hurt if he plays a lot of reps, and maybe they're going to curb him back now. Maybe this was just an opportunity. It's a Hall of Fame game. There's a crowd. It's televised. Maybe they thought we'll put a few players out. Maybe they felt a duty and obligation to put some players out.
Maybe they've done it that way. Maybe they've done it now. So if he gets a knock and a niggle, he's got 2 weeks to recover from it, rather than play him in game 3 when he goes straight into the season.
Yeah, and I think that's all you need to glean from the game. I don't think there's anything else you need to glean. There's nothing else in there that was really ultra significant. This is the point, right? And this is a word of warning to anybody playing fantasy football right now. People are hyper reactive to any piece of news that comes out right now.
We're getting anxious.
Trying to steal an edge. And there's a lot of false information that is out there right now, and a lot of stuff that people just jump on. Really concerned about anything.
Can I go the other way? There's something really positive that keeps coming out.
Yeah.
How many times have we seen Trey Lance to Brandon Ayuk this offseason in training camp? And how many times has it actually been tweeted directly from the Niners? They haven't sent anything of Lance to Debo. That's happening. Lance to Debo is happening as much, if not more. But they are not putting that information out there because they don't want you to see it and watch it.
Partly that, and I think partly it's just, you know, they had the whole thing with the contract. I know that's now resolved, but I think all of these things is, as you say, people just take all of this information and they go really, again, they're just looking at certain things and thinking about it and thinking, okay, I really want to come, you know, to draw a conclusion about something. I really want to do this. I really want to do that. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, here's what you've got to remember. Training camp in preseason is exactly that. The preseason is relevant for a couple of reasons. More importantly, it's understanding depth charge. That's what we want to know, right? Yep. This whole Pele is struggling. You know, let's look at last season. Jamar Chase couldn't catch a football. His ADP's tanks.
Yeah,
I don't know, 4 rounds because of it. And there's always this nonsense. Every single year, there's nonsense that comes out that becomes the hype-driven narrative of off-season football. You know, preseason games. What's important is understanding the depth chart. This is where you're going to find out about things like, you know, this is where you find out about like the James Robinson situation a couple of years ago. Fournette's cut. Who's the guy? It's James Robinson. You know, these are the nuggets, and they happen in the games. It's the games you want to watch. The camp news is interesting. The only thing that really interests me in camp news right now, health. That's what interests me. I want to know health, and I want to know what rookies look good. I'm not bothered about the ones that don't look good because rookies aren't always going to look good. Jamar Chase didn't look good in camp. Didn't matter. But I'm interested in guys like Wan'Dale Robinson right now. I think he looks good in camp. He's trending in the right direction to get the job over Sterling Shepard as the starting slot. That's interesting. That's something that really piques my interest and thinks late round dart throw. I might want to look at that because if he's the starting slot receiver on the Giants, if we look at Sterling Shepard, first 2 games of last season got 19 targets. That's an interesting thing to look at. I want to look at, for example, Rashad Higgins is catching dimes from Baker Mayfield. We know that connection is really strong. I've talked about it before. Those are the things I want to see. Is those kind of little things on late round dart throws, thinking, okay, are they cementing what I'm thinking? Is there something I need to know? But an injury news, Chris Godwin's back. He's practicing. Oh, but he's not going to be back. He's not going to be back before October, guys, because he had an ACL, and we haven't involved medical science in 20 years. So if it's 9 months, it's 9 months. Doesn't matter about individuals, etc. We got a guest coming on. This is what I mean. Is I said this time and time again. I always believed Godwin was going to be back. I didn't necessarily say week 1, but I never believed he was going to be out to August. And so just wait for the news. Wait till what happens.
So aside from that, before we get guests on and go through that, what about depth charts? You reading into those at this stage, or
no? Depth charts are lies, right? Depth charts.
Yes, they hide stuff.
Breece Hall's third on the depth chart.
Yep, that's where I was going.
Never in a million years. Never in a million years is he third on the. I'm not saying he's the designated starter week 1. He's not third on the depth. What you got to remember is teams are putting out misinformation. It's the same way as you just mentioned with Debo and Lance not getting any coverage. All of this is mind games. Depth charts are mind games. You know, Kenny Pickett's Mitch Trubisky's top of the depth chart. He might very well be.
No, he's not.
By the way. Well, officially that's been changed now.
Okay, fine.
So officially that's been changed. It's all that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we know it from the preseason games. What we want to see, and it's not always true, we want to see who's getting the reps in the first 2 games, because that's going to tell you who's going to be the primary backups more often than not, and then who's starting the 3rd games, and who's getting the volume of reps, who's getting more reps than others. When we're looking at competition by committee, and we're looking at committee backs, we want to see who's getting the volume in the games. That's what we want to see.
Who gets
when players aren't getting, when players aren't getting snaps and aren't getting plays, especially when we're looking at, some of these rookies, for example, and players who are potential cut candidates. That's what we're really interested in seeing.
I was going to say, looking at the kick returners as well, because those guys that are on the bubble, there might be an RB4 that could work into a committee somewhere. They're the guys that are going to keep, not anyone else. So look for the guys that are doing well at them kind of points. So absolutely.
Let's get our first guest on. So he's actually a Patreon of ours, Wardy. His name's Alex. He's an absolute superb bloke. I'm really honoured he's here. He's an absolute top guy. So Alex Wardy, welcome, matey. Alex. Good to have you here. How you doing?
Hey, Murf. How are you? Nice to meet you, Dan, as well.
And you're in your loft at the minute?
I'm not. Do you know what? I'm away from the kids. The reason I can dial in is I'm away from the kids for a couple of days. I'm actually, not to put a dampener on it, my mum's not too well, so I'm looking after her at the moment. But I thought, you know what? I saw Murf put it out there, and I listened to it every week, and I thought, well, why not? I've actually, for once, I'm not doing bath time, so I thought I'd jump on.
Mate, it's a great reason to have it. So, look, it's open mic. You're a 49ers fan. So before I'm going to let you sort of open up and talk about what you want to talk about, Dan mentioned this with Debo and Lance, and obviously Ayuk and Lance, that's getting all the press, but Debo and Lance behind the scenes. What's your sort of take as a 49ers fan with that dynamic? And do you think should we be worried about Debo? Are we not worried about Debo? I mean, everything going well. Like now he's been paid. Is there harmony in the camp now?
Yeah, I presume we're talking from a fantasy perspective, obviously. From a fantasy perspective, apart from FFCC, I haven't drafted Debo at all this summer. I had him in a team last year that won a league, and he was just he feels like it's so based on the run with him and the plays that Shanahan schemed for him, which I know that they've been tied into his contract now. He said he's got some money that's tied up to how many rush yards he gets, but it just feels a bit flimsy. And when I look at that, that sort of around that mark of running wide receiver 6 or 7, it feels way too rich for me. Whereas with Ayuk, and I know there's a lot of hype coming out of camp about him, but he did hit his straps towards the end of the last season, and he came out today saying that he's quite happy that he's not in the doghouse now, and what's his name, Gray's in the doghouse. So I think Shanahan trusts him now, and I prefer to pull the trigger on him later on in the draft than Debo. Could have egg on my face, but he's too rich for me this year. I mean, last year obviously it was an absolute bargain.
Unknown situation, take the second guy. Is that not what we stand by, right?
Yeah, I think so. I just don't think I don't see how you can get payback. And we'll come on to one of my questions in a minute. But he feels too rich for me when you could be loading up on running back and then focusing on hammering those, the cliche, mid-round wide receivers.
Yeah, I'm completely with you on that. I think I look at Samuel's price and I think, do I want Samuel, or 2 rounds later I can get Deontay Johnson, Michael Pittman, and that sort of ilk of player? Do I think there's that much of a drop off? No. I don't think there is.
No, definitely not. And I have to say, there's the other player in that sort of range, and I think Murf, you're off on him as well. I just can't stack in my head how expensive T. Higgins is.
No.
And he's in that same sort of, and I'm doing my rankings and I'm looking at it and I'm like, I've got around 14 and I have you, Murf, and a load of the other guys all lined up in my rankings, and I look at them and everyone, I'm much lower, apart from with you, I'm much lower on everyone else. And I'm like, am I getting something wrong here? But again, I don't see how he stacks up to that. Again, when you could get a decent, RB2 or RB1 in that area.
With draft, I know Jack's listening, Steve Rainswell going on. Someone's took T. Higgins, the pick before me, and I've took Mike Evans, and we've still got Metcalf, Deontay Johnson, Michael Pittman, DJ Moore, all wide receiver ones on their rosters, and Higgins is gone.
Right. So
bizarre.
In the Steve Rainswell, I took my first share of T. Higgins in a draft this summer. Guess where I took him? It
wasn't at 5-3.
No. Guess where I got him?
7 something.
7-10. I got him the last pick in the 7th round. Could have taken him at 8-1.
Which is okay.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I'll swallow him there.
Yeah. We were saying about the value of where these players are all worth something at the right spot.
I mean, I got him at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I got him a wide receiver 17. I'm punching there. I'll punch the ticket there.
I would do that.
I think wide receiver 17, back end of the 7th, beginning of the 8th round. I'm happy to take. I mean, it's a super flex and tight end scoring's premium, so it's a weirdo draft anyway.
Thanks, Jack.
But I'm quite happy to take him there because I think he's a very solid, safe wide receiver too. So I look at that and think anywhere between 14 and 18 is where I see his window. Okay, I think that's where he's going to be. So I think if someone punches him at 14, I think it's okay. I don't mind people reaching ever so slightly on Higgins if he falls below price and goes at that 14 range, because I think he is so safe at that sort of wide receiver 2 range. If you're reaching in that sort of late 4th, beginning of the 5th to get your wide receiver 2 there, I don't have a problem. I'd rather him over someone like DJ Moore, even though his ceiling is completely capped. Yeah. I think because the floor is so great that you can lock in a high-end wide receiver 2 finish that's just going to be really consistent. He's going to be a really consistent player on your roster. He's not going to have a load of those league-winning weeks, but he's going to have a load of those 12, 13-point weeks that you just need just for that consistency to get you near a win every week.
Hasn't finished above wide receiver 24 yet, though.
No, he hasn't. But, he had injuries one season. And
he did last year,
and I think at the end of the day, and then the other season, Burrow didn't finish the season. And he had... I can't even remember who the quarterback was who was throwing him the ball, but it wasn't worthy. He wasn't a quarterback that was worthy. That's it. Brandon Allen throwing him the ball, who isn't an NFL caliber quarterback. So, you're talking about those situations affect him. And I agree with you. He's not finished, but he's got the talent to finish in that sort of mid-range. But anyway, Wardy, you're on to ask questions. It's open mic, and we threw questions at you. So, what are your sort of questions? What are some of the things that you want to know from either from us or just in general? And we can put the world to rights here.
No, I mean, I think for me, I don't play in too many PPR leagues, which I know is a bit different to the general consensus is there. And so when it comes to sort of half PPR leagues, do you think the likes of Nyheim Hines and Kenneth Gainwell and James Cook and those guys are as important as they are in, I struggle at the end of the draft. So I'm filling my roster and I'm like, do I want them or do I want a Damian Pierce or a Tyler Algiere who might start, who might be the number one running back? And I don't know whether I'm sort of in a halfway house as to whether I should be drafting the likes of Nyheim Hines in a half PPR league versus, I know you definitely wouldn't a PPR league. It's a question.
For me, I love Nyheim Hines this year.
Yeah.
I absolutely love Nyheim Hines this year. I think Nyheim Hines, I don't know what happened last year. I think there were some injuries. We had some interesting situations going on in Indianapolis last year that I think just it stunted the growth. But if we looked at the year before, now I famously was quite low on Jonathan Taylor last year because of Nyheim Hines. I think Nyheim Hines is a player who is going to command a certain amount of work, especially in the receiving game. I think he's going to.
And the QB's going to help Nyheim Hines as well.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think at the end of the day, you're looking at the situation of that team. You've got Matt Ryan, who, let's be honest, that shoulder and that arm is not what it was. He's not capable of throwing those deep balls that often anymore. We've seen his target yardage. We've seen his ADOT fall right down. He had a lot of games. I think it took him 6-7 games before he threw a successful pass over 20 yards last season. I don't quote me as an actual fact, but I remember talking about the amount of incompletions. There weren't many attempts, but there were even fewer completions in that range. So we're looking at scheming Matt Ryan to his strengths, which is that short to intermediate passing. We look at what Nyheim Hines can do, and we look at how the coaches are approaching. And again, he's someone in preseason I think is going to be very interesting to watch. But I do think he's coming off healthy. He looks good. We want to see this in preseason correlate, but I think he's someone for me who holds a lot of interest. Now, we have to be realistic with the expectation here that he's not someone who's going to win you a lot of weeks. He's not going to put up stupidly high fantasy numbers, but he's someone who 2 seasons ago finished as the running back 23-24. And that's sort of, you're basically getting him not free, but you're getting him very late in drafts of someone who is going to be fantasy relevant, flex relevant, but holds handcuff options. So, and he goes into that category with a Pollard and Alexander. Well, Pollard really is kind of the guy I'd compare him to, where he's usable week to week, but as soon as something happens to Jonathan Taylor, he becomes instantly a lot more relevant and a lot more prominent. I'm not saying he gets all of Jonathan Taylor's workload, but he goes from being a flex guy to an RB2. And I think that's what's appealing to someone like Nyheim Hines, is you want to have these guys who can get you solid 10 to 12 point weeks through bye week cover, and that's what Nyheim Hines will do. Sure. Going back to players you're sort of comparing, James Cook, I'm not in on. I'm always a believer of you've got to. For me, I just think rookie running backs in strange situations where you've got a dominant player on the roster who has done the job and is doing the job well, I always am a little cautious now. That it becomes a sticky situation.
A few reports of James Cook struggling with his pass blocking as well through camp. So
I don't care about pass blocking. Is this pass blocking is for running backs is the single most talked about aspect. That is,
it's killed Ronald Jones's career.
Right. No. So if you're bad at pass blocking, yes, it will do something like kill Ronald Jones's career when you've got a coach who just doesn't like it. at the same point, Keyshawn Vaughan was one of the best pass blocking running backs in college football and couldn't get on the field. Like at the end of the day, people saying, "Oh, well, he pass blocks, therefore he's going to get on the field." It's nonsense.
You also don't score fantasy points for pass blocking.
Of course you don't. And at the end of the day, it's one of these things that we are taught, that teachers, we say these things to justify our selections, and we try and pick up on these. Oh, well, we want to pick him, so we're thinking of reasons why he's going to be on the field. Ultimately, it's down to production. When you get the ball, what do you do with the ball? That determines how well you do. And Nyheim Hines has done this. He's done it for his coach already in that offense. James Cook, we don't know. Ty Algiere, I really like. I liked him as a prospect. I liked him as a player coming out. I was very high on him. I think the landing spot is good. I think you look at the fact that they don't have a lot of receiving talent. They've got Auden Tate, could be good. Omalade Zacchaeus, he's flashed at times. But really, you're looking at Drake London, Kyle Pitts. You could see situations where Tyler Algiere lines up as the running back. And he's still got to beat out Damian Williams. Damian Williams is there. You know, we can't forget about him. But you could see situations where Cordell Patterson lines up as a wide receiver and Algiere is the guy who's the back. You know, we don't know what's going to happen. Algiere holds some interest to me because, to be honest, it's such a talent-poor roster. It's not going to take a lot for Algiere to get work. It will take an injury or just the fact that they might just line Patterson in different areas and use Algiere. Like, at the end of the day, I look at where there's opportunity. James Cook, I don't see a lot of opportunity right now because you've still got Zach Moss on the roster, and Zach Moss isn't liked. He's not well used. But ultimately, the Bills are not interested in using committee backs, and they're not interested in using multiple backs to get work. Ultimately, they also use Josh Allen as their goal line guy. They don't use a running back that often. So you're looking at James Cook thinking he might be a guy between the 20s if he gets work, which scores you some points, but not really a lot to get you anything going. He might get some receiving work. Who knows? We'll see how it goes. I don't know. Algiere is interesting. You mentioned, like Marlon Mack. Damian Pierce. Damian Pierce. Okay, so he's got the problem. Yeah, and the problem is that the Texans haven't shown me that they can run the ball. They haven't run the ball well the last couple of years. They have so many guys. The problem, and I would take Mack because Mack is the experienced guy, but they have so many, like that running back position. They have Mack, they have Dario Gumbawale, who is quite an experienced player. And, you know, he ran it up in championship week last year. You got Rex Burkhead, who had a couple of really good games last year for the Texans. Then you've got Damian Pierce. You've got all these guys, and people love the new shiny toy. People love the
game script's going to be against the Texans a lot of the time, I imagine, this year. So that's not going to help all four of them get work.
They're not going to win a lot of games, and they're invested in Davis Mills.
Yeah, exactly.
He can throw the ball. They want Davis Mills to throw the ball. Davis Mills
put an experienced back in there, someone that knows their assignments, knows an offense, and can help him. Marlon Mack.
And they've got so many experienced guys. It's not even the fact it's one. You know,
Rex Burkhead.
Rex Burkhead's a great guy. I mean, he'll go down injured at some point, but until he's injured, he's a good option. Dario Gumbawale, similar. You know, he's a very successful. You got to remember, he was a captain on one of the Buccaneers team, special teams, because he's such a great locker room guy. You know, they've got these guys who are good, not just good professionals, but they're good people. And Pierce has got to come in and has got to earn a role, and he might do. And I think people are excited that he could, but I think Pierce is probably at least half a season, if not a season, away from any form of relevance. Now, that could all change. He could have a blistering preseason, blow everyone away, win the job, and that is in his range of outcomes. But the fact that the Texans they're not going to have a good offensive line. That's the other thing. Their offensive line's poor. It's very poor. It's probably bottom 5, bottom 3 in the NFL. Like, they don't create many holes. That's why no one's put up fantasy numbers there. David Johnson was there last year, couldn't do a thing. You know, they're not very good at running the football. And they've had some really good backs. Philip Lindsay was there last year, couldn't do anything. You know, Marlon Mack could do nothing. He could literally be running in treacle because the offensive line doesn't create holes. That's in the range of outcomes. I just don't want to touch Dameon Pierce in a redraft league because I don't really want part of that Texans offense, or because there's just isn't. I'm not convinced they run the ball well. I think it's more. I want to look at situations where teams can run the ball well and teams can create opportunities. So I look at Nyheim Hines for me is a great option. I think there's a few teams. Algiere, I think, just on opportunity. I think of opportunity. Then they might not be the best team in the world, but they're so talent poor that there's an opportunity for guys to get up there and actually do a job. I look at other leagues. I think of other players in that sort of range. Trey Sermon. If Trey Sermon was a guy who was drafted really, he was drafted higher than Elijah Mitchell. Yeah. He had the trust of the organ. They traded up to get him. This is what people forget. They traded up to get him. They saw something in Sermon they liked. Shanahan's not the sort of player. You've just said it, Ayuk was in the doghouse last year. He's not in the doghouse anymore. No. Players get second chances. It wouldn't shock me that Sermon elevated himself to the top of a depth chart at some point this season. Might not be week 1, might not be week 2. Yeah. But Sermon can end up top of the depth chart by week 5 if something happens to Mitchell, if he doesn't stay healthy, which he struggled with last season. Sermon could be the guy. Those are the guys I want to take chances on. I don't want to take chances on Cook and players who I just don't think are going to. They're not going to do much.
And so, a little closer to home, Murf. We're both huge Brady fans from last season, especially. He was magic for us. Are you a little bit worried about this season with the O-line and the Jensen injury and who left? Marfette left. Are you worried they're a bit light there?
Dan?
I have concerns. I don't think about talent.
No.
I think what Jensen offered in terms of character and the way he set the tone for that O-line is huge. And I think we will miss that. How can I put it? Naughty aggressiveness, I guess, that he kind of had even between the plays, let alone within the play. I think it's a great opportunity for someone like Tristan Wirfs to try and step in and fill that void as the leader of that line. My concern technically with Hainsey maybe at centre is I think what Jensen did really well off a snap was push the tackle backwards. Brady likes to step back and then step into a pocket.
Yeah.
And he will push a tackle backwards. If you've got a centre that's being pushed back into Brady, we saw at the end of New England, Brady can't step into a pocket and he can't roll out of a pocket. That does worry me slightly, having your centre push back into him. But if they can get Hainsey pushing forward off a snap and he can be good enough to do it, I think the talent's there. It doesn't worry me too much.
Yeah. I hold less concerns. I think here's why I hold less concerns.
I don't think I had a lot of concerns. So.
Pardon? Well, I think you're right in the sense of Hainsey's got to hold his own. Yep. I think if there was any concern Hainsey wasn't going to hold his own, the Buccaneers would have brought someone in. We've seen this. They're very aggressive in free agency. They're very aggressive in signing players. And they're in a very attractive team to anybody who doesn't have a job right now. If the Buccaneers come calling right now, you're playing. Like you are going to choose the Buccaneers over probably 29, 30, maybe even 31 teams because of the fact they're in a poor division. You've got Tom Brady. That roster is loaded. Like you're gonna probably play for less money because you see an opportunity to win a ring. Yep. If the Buccaneers are calling your agent right now, you're pretty much going to take their offer. So the fact that they haven't brought anybody in, and that's not to say they won't. I think the next few weeks are interesting. I wouldn't rule out them bringing someone in, but the fact that they haven't done it yet, so they do have some real trust in Hainsey. And Hainsey was really good in the Senior Bowl. He was really good in college. Like he's a really, really good player. They used a reasonable draft pick on him. And I think he will do a really good job. And he's very versatile. He can play across the line. That's what I like about Hainsey is he can play in a few different positions. Marpet is a big loss. Yes, you can talk about some leadership. I think you mentioned Wirfs. Wirfs for me is an all-pro tackle. Yep. Donovan Smith gets a lot of hate, but ultimately he's an above-average tackle. I'm not worried about. I'm more worried about the depth than I am about the starting caliber. But the other thing you got to remember is Brady is Brady. He's playing. This is his 22nd season in the league. That experience of knowing the coverages, knowing what's coming, knowing how to take a sack. Sacks are sacks. They're going to happen. He's going to get sacked. He's going to get hit. He knows, the one thing about Tom Brady is he also knows how to go down. Tom Brady has only ever suffered one significant injury his entire career, which is when he tore his ACL. Yeah. That's the only thing you got to worry about with Tom Brady is if someone gets that ACL and snaps it, because when he gets hit, he goes down, he goes back up. He doesn't leave games. He doesn't miss games. So I'm not worried about the O-line. I'm not worried about him and his ability to avoid sacks and take sacks and get rid of the ball. I think I think the Buccaneers will be fine. I think because I think the quarterback will set the tone. I think he'll release the ball early. I think they'll find ways around it. So I'm not really worried about it, to be honest. I'm more worried about the things that worry me about the Buccaneers is more the defensive unit, the defensive line, and actually can the Buccaneers force enough stops, get enough sacks, force enough pressure on the QB, because you've got, no
Sue and no JVP.
Well, that's what I mean. So you're losing a bit of experience there. You got Joe Tryon, who was a first-round pick last year. Yeah. He's coming into that role. How ready is he? We've seen flashes, but we haven't seen it consistently. So you can double team Barrett. You've lost Sue, so you've lost some leadership there. You still got Vita Vea, of course, but you have lost some experience in places there. Have you got enough to force the pressure on the quarterback, to dial up those pressures, to get yourself to get the offense on the ball? That's my biggest concern on the offense. Isn't the offense, it's the offense getting the ball. Is the defensive line good enough in big situations to get off the field and get the offense the ball? That's the only concern I have with this roster right now. Sure, and I think if they do that, they'll be fine. But I'm not worried about the offensive line at all. I'm more worried about the defensive line. But yeah.
And whilst we're on them, Murf, because you obviously support them, but do you think Lenny will still get the same role as last season, or are you a believer in White and his skill set? I mean, the more you sort of hear about it, I know we had the the fat shaming and all that sort of stuff, which we get every season, but it just feels like a little bit like from a pass catching perspective, White is going to be a bit more of a flavour than Ronald was, etc.
I'd say in the pass catching, there's somebody else still ahead of White. Personally, no, we've got a fit and healthy Giovanni Bernard back.
Really,
who was brought in for that role, and Jones and all that had trouble. And I think Fournette found himself in that role of being a 3-down back. He performed admirably with it, and I think he'll retain it to some extent. But I wouldn't discount Giovanni Bernard from having some usage that he didn't get last year because of injury.
Yeah, I will. I'll be honest with you. I think Fournette's a top 5 back in fantasy football this year. I'm all in. I'm all in on him. I just don't see. We saw it down the stretch. Ronald Jones isn't on the roster. Buccaneers just tend to not really favor. They don't tend to trust rookie running backs. Even Ronald Jones in his rookie year wasn't significantly trusted. I can't remember. Probably Doug Martin.
Doug Martin, maybe. The last one. Yeah.
Pardon?
Yeah. Doug White would have been the last.
I think Doug Martin was the last, and we're talking about the entirely different regimes. Here, this coaching staff in a Super Bowl window are going to give their players, the players with the talent, the players with the experience. They're the ones that are going to get the ball. I mean, they just signed Julio Jones off the street for no other reason than they could.
Yeah.
Just because they could. Look, did they need Julio Jones? Is Julio Jones a huge upgrade on what they've got on the roster? No, he's a wide receiver 4 on that roster. But they signed him because they thought at some point he could probably do something for this team. And they want trusted veterans. They want people who have been in those situations, who can handle the pressure, who can handle those plays. Don't get me wrong, rookies have made significant impacts on this roster. Devon White, significant rookie, second-year player when you think about that Super Bowl run. Anton Winfield Jr. in his rookie year, Tristan Wirfs in his rookie year, obviously won Super Bowl rings. But they are very few and far between. You looked at Joe Tryon, I mentioned him, didn't get a lot of usage last year. They don't want to use rookies. They want to develop them. This roster is going to be very different in 12 months' time. There's not going to be Brady. This team is not going to be a Super Bowl contender in 12 months' time unless they trade for quarterbacks and they get loads of pieces in. Rashad White for me is a future player. He's someone from next season could be quite tidy. They might move on Leonard Fournette. They might try and cut some cap, get rid of some veterans, and think, well, we'll go into a rebuild and we'll use players like Rashad White. I think Rashad White this year is a dead year for him. I think you'll see him, but I don't think he's getting any real role. I mean, people still aren't talking about Keyshawn Vaughan. Keyshawn Vaughan's going to have some small role in this offense. I don't think it's going to be huge, but I think he keeps Rashad White off the field. Giovanni Bernard is going to keep Rashad White off the field. If Rashad White ends up with 500 yards, I'll be shocked. I'll be absolutely shocked. Yeah. I just don't see it. I don't see a path because the Buccaneers just don't. Again, they sign veterans. They don't sign rookies. They're signing veteran players who have been there, and we've seen it. Just, let's go get Logan Ryan, who's been there and done it. Let's go and get, that's what they're doing. Let's just go and get guys who we know are winners, who are guys who have been there and done it, who are at one point or another were one of the best in the league. That's what they're doing. They're not getting these young guys. They don't care about age profile and youth. They care about winning now. And so and they don't trust rookie running backs. They haven't for 6-7 years. And Rashad White for me is just not a guy. He's just not a guy this year. I didn't take him in any dynasty leagues, and I didn't take him. And that's not, by the way, next year I think he could be a real thing. Like I really do. But for this year, I think he's a write-off. And the reason I didn't take him is because I think I can scoop Rashad White in a lot of dynasty leagues for 3rd, 4th round picks next year because people will see the fact he's probably not going to get more than 250, 300 yards. And I think people will panic. And I think they'll go, oh, so he's no good. And he'll follow. And then the case you'll make is Keyshawn Vaughan. He did nothing in his first 2 years. And there's a whole slew of running backs you can use. Ronald Jones was almost the exception. He was almost half decent at times.
Sure.
I just think Rashad White for me is just. I'm so far out on Rashad White.
No, I've got an unhealthy amount of Lenny shares, so it's good news. But I keep looking at. I've got him in Steve. I've got him in Steve Rains. I've got him in FFCC. I'm like, my god. Perfect. So that's. I am hoping it continues that way.
I mean, that for me is my most owned stack in best ball is the Brady, Fournette, Godwin stack because I think Fournette and Godwin
got fishbowl with it.
Yeah, they're so cheap. Fournette and Godwin are so cheap at ADP for where I think they're going to finish. And Godwin's ADP is going to catch up now. If you've been listening to this show for the last 3 months, you've been buying Godwin.
Because... I haven't. I was being stubborn. Just focusing on Mike Evans. And then I had to WhatsApp you the other day being like, yeah, all right. Doffing my hat to you.
It's because, everyone just assumes ACL 9 months. Not all humans are the same. They're not the same. Every bit, I can't take credit on it. I'm lucky enough that there's beat writers I trust. There's beat writers I know. There's beat writers who are lucky enough that will take an email or a message from me. And I'm lucky enough to ask, hey, what's the situation? Well, the news we hear is he's trending ahead of where he should be.
I know you're wrong. That's all I need. Running and doing drills. There's a long way to be playing football.
Yeah, of course it is.
But if he was going to be an October comeback, he wouldn't be doing drills now.
No, he wouldn't be.
So
and there is still a chance he misses week 1, by the way, and that is in these range, and that was always factored into his price for me.
Yeah,
but I always felt he would come back in week 2 at minimum, and I always felt that this October nonsense was exactly that. It was nonsense. I never believed it. I never felt that was real. And I'm not trying to do a victory lap here. This isn't it. I'm just saying that people get in their minds a thing. And we talked about this again. This is about information, disinformation. ACL 9 months. People are
Achilles gone forever.
Achilles gone. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, humans are humans. They return at different rates. Some humans will return back at other rates than other humans. And at the end of the day, you have to follow the news that comes out. And if you follow the beat writers at Tampa, and if you follow Greg Allman, and if you follow Rick Stroud, they've always been very adamant that he was ahead of schedule, that he was always ahead of schedule, that he was always likely to appear at some point in training camp. They were very, very clear. This isn't information that I procured over anybody else. It was out there in the public domain. but people ignored it because it was like, well, he's got an ACL. He injured it in January. He's back in October. That's just what happens. That's an ACL. And it's just that's a logic that is just foolhardy, because what you've done is you've given players like me and players who have seen that news, you've given them an edge because you've faded a player by two rounds of ADP. He's been faded for no good reason. Definitely. So you can scoop, if you've been playing all off season, you've scooped amazing value on him. And that value will start to shrink. But that's fine. And, I still think the whole Buccaneers offense is value. I think everybody in the Buccaneers offense, people just, for some reason, people are tipping Buccaneers to win 13, 14 games, but have faded the entire offense. Yeah. Brady's an 8th round ADP.
I think that's because of how many there are and the share. And I don't think they quite understand the share split. But
maybe they don't. But
keep them more relevant.
Which makes sense. And I understand that. But not one player is accurately where they should be. Because
Fournette's boards at wide receiver 21 currently, 57.
Yeah. Right. And Evans' hammy's playing up again, so he'll start to drop down a bit, down to 8th, 9th.
Yeah. Gage shot up and then disappeared when we signed Julio.
Yeah. I mean, Leonard Fournette's going off the board at RB13. That's too low. Mike Evans is going off the board. Chris Godwin's going off at wide receiver 21. That's stupid. Yeah. That's just that's just thiefdom at that range. Mike Evans is going off a wide receiver. Okay, so Mike Evans is the only one for me who's going off at price, which is wide receiver 9. That's strong.
I bet he drops over the next couple of weeks, but
he probably will. He'll probably drop to that 12 range, but fine. Brady's going off at QB9. That's fiefdom for me.
All those wide receiver 47.
Stupid. I mean,
we'll probably see Julio catching him soon.
Yeah, if he hasn't already. What is Julio? Yeah, wide receiver 47. What's Julio Jones at?
I don't know. I was scrolling down. Julio is currently wide receiver 61. Yeah, and even if that's a red zone target alone, he will outscore wide receiver 61.
Of course he will. And then Rashad White is running back 54, which I think is crazy because I look because he's right because you've got Algiere at 50. You got Algiere at 52. You got Darrell Henderson. On Sleeper, Rashad White's ADP is above Algiere's, Henderson's, Mac. I'm having all these players, by the way, over him. This is crazy. J.D. McKissick, I'm having. Mark Ingram, I'll have over him. Gainwell, push. Khalil Herbert, I'd have over him.
The situation we haven't mentioned is Ernest Johnson. Another one.
So that's an interesting one. That ties in. So let's talk this question.
I know. Do you like how a host does that? Segues.
I know. Very clever. Yeah.
So news obviously came out. Is Kareem Hunt? Do we see him get traded, or was the news around him
sitting in?
Just smoke. It's a really good question.
We've both spoke for a couple of weeks about him being a huge cut risk, haven't we?
Yeah. I think he was a significant, huge cut risk, and I think the fact that he is now requesting a trade. I think if he holds in, he will play himself out and get cut. Ultimately, I don't think there's a big difference between him and Dearness Johnson from the franchise perspective, other than the cash. And I think the Browns could be swayed either way. I don't think the Browns will make a compelling case to try and keep Kareem Hunt if he's going to kick up a fuss.
Especially if the NFL come back with a longer ban than 6 games.
And the thing is, I don't think Kareem Hunt's going to get traded because I think they know that they'll cut him.
Yeah,
I think he went to training yesterday as well. So this all came out when they went training. It's like they've got Ford as well. Yeah, so
he's taking part in meetings. He's taking part in weight sessions. He's not taking part in any team drills. It's the new holding in rather than
holding in as opposed to holding in. So the thing
he's
is,
there. They can't fine him. They can't penalise him. He's there. He just isn't partaking in full practice.
Is a question to you two. They both become quite big draft targets for me because if he moves on, he's going to move somewhere, probably where he's going to be RB1.
Hunt will have a role.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, he's going to go somewhere where he's going to be the main man, and then Dearness Johnson becomes,
Later than that, I think Jonas Johnson's going off boards at the minute.
Yeah,
so
I mean Jonas Johnson.
He's on. I got him last round in FCC. Yeah.
So I think it's interesting because I think I'm going to put a GM hat on here. So if I'm a GM, if I'm a GM of an NFL team right now, why would I give the Browns anything for Kareem Hunt?
You're not.
He's got nearly $6 million on his contract.
Yeah.
So that's a lot for a running back. If you think about most teams have paid a running back of some form and degree, $6 million in your running back room is a lot. It's a heck of a lot. If I'm a GM of a team, I'm thinking, why would I trade for Kareem Hunt? Because he's a veteran, he'll go straight to free agency. He doesn't go on to waivers.
Mm-hmm.
So he clears waivers automatically. So he becomes a free agent if he gets cut. So you're going to play on the open market for him. He's not going to cost as much. He's not going to get that $6 million because he's not going to get it. It's a fake deal almost. So
let's give him vet minimum, bring him to Tampa.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's going to play for vet min, but I think you can get him for $3-4 million because I think that's going to be the best he's going to get on the market. I think the bottom line is the only reason you trade for him is because you're not going to get him in free agency. So if you're not going to get him in free agency, you have to be a cash-rich team and you have to be a pretty poor option to where you're not going to get considered in free agency.
Yeah.
The only team I think that fits the bill of that I think is a realistic option is the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I think they're the only team realistically. Because it's the sort of thing that Doug Pederson would do because he loves having a million running backs on his roster.
I was going New York Giants.
And that could be another one because they're the sort of organization that would do something like that. But considering how much they pay,
he's only on 6. Let's pay him 12.
But the fact that they already pay Saquon the amount of money they have. If they tie up more money in that running room, that's lunacy. But all right, let's say that they're the options. They're realistically that would be trade options. If he goes to the Jags, there's no interest for me. None. Like literally with everything that's there. First of all, I'm not in on any Jags running back because I don't like the way that Doug Pederson uses running backs anyway. But secondly, if he does go to the Giants, you're waiting on Saquon to go down. And that could happen, and then all of a sudden he becomes really interesting. So then he does become a buy candidate because he's a premium handcuff. But assume that doesn't happen, then we're waiting to see where he goes. And that could be one of these mysteries that will happen probably a week or two before the season where they cut him and then they see where he goes. Then it is just a case of it is a lottery because most of your drafts will be done by then and you're seeing where he lands. And he could land somewhere really good. He could land somewhere really poor. We can see. Whereas Deonis Johnson for me is a massive buy now because I do see a path to him being the next. It appears as every day goes on that Kareem Hunt will not be a Cleveland Brown, but I don't think he's going to get traded. I think he will just get cut because the only teams that will trade for him are the ones who aren't going to get him in a free agency. And if they do, I don't think they're situations that I would really want to invest in anyway for him. So it could happen, but I think it would be someone like the Jags. I think they're the sort because they got so much cash. The Jags they got so much cap that they could swallow that $6 million, like no problem. They could probably pay him. It'd be the sort of thing that they would do, that they'd give him like because that's what Hunt wants. He wants a 2-3 year deal. And I think Hunt would probably rather be cut, to be honest. He won't earn his contract this year, but I think at least that way he can go and get a 3-year, $10 million deal or something like that and get himself some cash and some guarantees over the next few years, which is what he wants. See, I think he gets cut. I don't think he gets traded. I think he gets cut. And I think Deonis Johnson's the guy I want to own now. I think he's the guy I'd start to aggressively target in the last 4 rounds of drafts. So again, we talked about guys in that range, Tyler Algiere, Naheem Hines, now Deonis Johnson in that range.
Right back to the start. Look at that.
Seamlessly.
I think with this question and this thought process, Dearness Johnson becomes someone who becomes highly interesting. It's probably worth reaching 2 rounds on to go and grab, because if the day that Kareem Hunt goes and is off the roster, Dearness Johnson's price skyrockets.
Wide receiver, running back 68. He's coming off the ball at the minute. Dearness Johnson.
I was 3 picks away when news came out yesterday, and I was like, someone will snipe him on FFCC final round. I was like, and then managed to get him. It's about the only time I hadn't had the player I wanted in my queue pinched. But I think he's going to be. He's a nice candidate to have at the end of your bench.
100%.
Practically next to Trey Sermon in ADP. 2 spots.
Oh, there you go.
I've got one final question. Question before I leave you. I'm on the clock. Range Bowl.
What round?
And what round am I in? We're in round 9 now.
Okay.
Shortlist. I think the shortlist. Is I can have either running back or wide receiver. I need one of them. Got Sutton, Cooks, Elijah Mitchell, or AJ Dillon.
Sutton, Cooks, Elijah Mitchell, or AJ Dillon. Who are your
What
tight end
ends
options?
Tight end. Oh shit, yeah. Well, tight end. I opened with Travis Kelce 1.7, and I haven't been back out there yet.
Well, you got to start 2.
I know.
And you can start 7.
I know. It's getting pretty thin out there, actually. Njoku, Higbee, Hunter Henry, Hooper. I mean, I've left it.
Have you missed Komet?
No, he's gone. He's gone.
Wow. What round are you in?
Shut up. I
got Komet. I got Komet at the 10-1.
Oh, did you? No,
Gerald
you went
Everett,
7-2 in ours.
Wow.
Yeah.
God, I've been driving his ADP up. I probably single-handedly responsible for at least 1 round increase on Gold Komet.
I reckon. I come round on the swing in a couple more turns. So
all right.
I want to add one more into the run to the bit into running back.
It sounds like Cooks. It sounds like Cooks for me.
He's pretty solid, right? Isn't he? I think so.
I was going upside. I was going to call him Sutton.
Cooks is so consistent.
Yeah.
We on byweight. I mean, my other 2 wide receivers are Jefferson and DJ Moore.
If it makes you feel any better, Brandon Cooks went at the 11-9 in our division.
11-9.
Yeah, he went 11-9. I missed him. I missed him at 1. I took Gabe Davis and Hunter Renfrow at the 11-10 and the 12-1.
That's a weird draft for you, right? We draft very similar, and I have no Gabe Davis or Hunter Renfrow almost anywhere.
I like Gabe Davis, but especially the 11th round.
I'm shooting up. Diversifying your portfolio in that draft.
Yeah. Well, so this is my team in that. This is how weird it is. I took Cup at the 110.
Right.
Yeah.
Kyle Pitts at the 2-1.
Yeah.
Then I went back-to-back QB. I went Prescott and Lance. I got Fournette at the 5-10.
Did you?
So I don't have
and then
QB yet,
and then Zeke at the 6-1. Then I got Higgins at the 7-10, Pat Freiermuth at the 8-1. I got Jameis at the 9-10 because I realised both my QBs are the same bye week. That's fine. Don't mind about that. I don't need him until week 9, so you can. I got Cole Komet at the 10-1, which is just stealing. Yeah, and then Davis and Renfro. Back to your question because it's about your team, not mine.
Yes.
I think you could either go Mitchell or you can shoot Sutton for the upside. Or Cooks.
I think
I personally like Cooks.
Komet come off our ball at 5-2.
Oh wow!
Really?
I'm stealing life at 10-1.
I mean, the last round I went for TJ Watt. I mean, I haven't got a clue.
Oh my god, you went IDP! Wow,
I didn't. I mean, I had a clue. There's a few of them started coming off.
What have you done to us all?
But you've only got to start 1 IDP player.
I know. There's not enough of them to pick.
That's what I mean.
Right.
You get a bit of difference, but anyway, I just think Cooks is going to have a sneaky good year. I think Cooks is a top 18 wide receiver, and I think he has some good weeks. I still don't think there's really competition for targets for him. I really like Davis Mills. I think it's a good partnership. Courtland Sutton, I see what you say about the upside. Could definitely happen. You gamble in there because Sutton has wide receiver 1 outcomes in his range, whereas Cooks doesn't. But he also has wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 outcomes. But it is best ball, so you can shoot So I wouldn't hate the Sutton pick. Mitchell.
He's the last one of the before proper dead zone. He is the last one.
Well,
really.
And then so that might force your hand because if it's such a, you got to look at the teardrop.
Walker, Harris, Sanders, Pollard, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Yeah, it is the teardrop. Well, it's in my teardrop in my mind, but there we go.
Well, then, yeah. So I think you've answered your own question there because I think
I drafted Elijah Mitchell has been added. Thank you, lads. Cheers.
So you didn't pick either of the ones we said?
No, I didn't. No. But thanks a lot, and great to chat, lads. And Dan, give me. I know Murf pretty well, but give me one of my guys for the season. Maybe not the most obvious, but someone that you're pinning your colours to for the upcoming one.
They're going to be almost identical to Murf's, to be honest. I think me and him have so much in common.
Yeah. We are so similar.
The two I think we disagree on, and we're talking later round guys here rather than early. DJ Sharp is going to be the wide receiver one in Detroit.
Yeah.
And Gerald Everett. Steve Rainsbowl, you need tight ends.
I know.
Go find Gerald Everett.
I'm with you on. I don't know what you're saying. I'm with you on Gerald Everett. I like him. I wrote a really positive article about Gerald Everett.
You did, yeah.
Yeah, I wrote some really glowing pieces that I thought he was a very nice late round guy.
Okay.
I'm not having that. DJ Chark, DJ, and I like DJ Chark. I just don't. Yeah, I don't think he's the one, but Dan, very similar to me. It's quite funny. We have chats, and it's we both decided that we're each other's GMs in emergency situations. If I end up incapacitated, Dan gets all of my teams now.
Yeah,
because
you just run them exactly how I want them to be. Wow,
we would have very little trouble being a co-commissioner, GM, because we just pick the same people. Which makes for a pretty bad show. But...
Someone just took Kadarius Toney at the 13-8 in the Steve Rains Bowl.
Nice.
Wide receivers still on the board. Garrett Wilson, Jameson, Williams, Chase, Claypool, Christian Watson, Sky Moore. Tyler Lockett is still there. Christian Kirk, Michael Gallup, Robert Woods, Russell Gage, Tyler Boyd.
Kirk's someone I think is going to have a sneaky good year this year. Where is
I don't know why you're selecting Toney over all of those players.
Yeah.
That's a lot of.
He's a sexy pick though, isn't he? At the moment. So.
No, he's not.
Kirk got injured today. No, but as in he's everyone's talking about him, isn't it? You know, he flashed some brilliance last season, but Kirk got injured today in training, but I don't think it was anything too bad. But he took a knock.
Cool.
You'd be pleased to know. I might take your guy. Dan in the Steve Rains Bowl. Maybe. Yeah. Depends if Paddy's watching. If Paddy's watching, he's probably
exactly. Yeah, there's a few. All right, guys.
But yeah, if not. But no, Wardy, tell everyone where they can interact with you and talk ball.
Yeah, I mean,
it's been a pleasure having you on. I'm so glad you were able to join us.
Not at all. I mean, I'd just say huge thanks to Murf. You do a lot in the fantasy space in the UK, but always on hand to answer a question. And if you're not a Patreon member, you're absolutely missing out. So I would highly recommend joining on that. But no, I'm on Twitter at Wardy145. I don't put a lot out there. I'm more of one to read on things, but definitely if someone reached out to me, then I'll certainly interact. Absolutely love fantasy and can't wait for the season to start. So good luck and thanks for all the good work that you guys put out there. It's brilliant.
Oh well, we appreciate your support, mate. People like you make it possible for us to be here and do this, so we really appreciate it. Just before we sign off, I just want to I just literally got some news in the last few minutes. Sort of personal news. It's fantasy player related. So in Warrior Bowl 2020, I played with a bunch of really good guys. And actually, we still have our Warrior Bowl 2020 finalist chat. Nice. And there's a guy, he's in Scott Fish Bowl. He's in a load of things. His name is Jeff Tyndall. He's called Tim Man. And he's just shared a post in our Warrior Bowl chat that he had a heart attack yesterday, and had he not gone to hospital during the heart attack, he would have died. He's okay in the sense of he's in the right place. He's getting treatment. He's just sent an update. His right coronary artery is 95% blocked. So he's in hospital. He's getting treatment, but he, very nearly lost his life yesterday. And he's someone I got to know really well during that Warrior Bowl run in the finals. He's someone who I speak to fairly regularly. So I just want to send my best wishes, the best wishes of everyone in the 5 Yard family to Jeff. If you do follow the Tim Man, he's put it on Facebook as a Facebook post, so I'm assuming he's making it somewhat public, but maybe not truly public. But I just want to give a shout out of well wishes to him and his family. And I hope he makes a full recovery. And Tim, man, love you, buddy. Get yourself up off the mat and get yourself healthy and well for fantasy season. And I'm glad that you're getting the help and the support that you need. So love you, big man, and get better soon. So literally just got that in my Twitter inbox. So I just wanted to just drop a message of support to him.
Awesome.
I know it's somber news.
You are big day at the hospital tomorrow as well, so our best to you as well for that, mate. And I hope you're on the road to recovery.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a minor thing in comparison to it's a minor thing in comparison to a heart attack. So it's just a scan for clots, and hopefully I have no clots tomorrow, and we go on. And if I have clots, then we'll see what happens. But yeah, fingers crossed to have a good day tomorrow, and then I can come back with just recovering and come back stronger. But I feel mentally better every day. Physically, there's still a long way to go, but mentally, I feel so much better than I did last week. So that's always positive. And yeah, health is real. And I guess the message of this to end it on is just to hug your loved ones tonight. You mentioned, Wardy, your mum's not well, and I wish you and your family all thoughts and hope that she's recovering. And I hope if you've got loved ones who are under the weather, or even if you don't have loved ones under the weather, just drop your loved ones a message. You never know what they're going through and when something might happen. You know, with my leg, it was completely, it's just my leg, right? It's not life-threatening. I'm not in any life-threatening danger, but for the last 4 weeks, I've been in and out of hospital and haven't been able to really live any sort of life and not seen a lot of people. Tim Man, has a heart attack going at a football game. Like, do you know what I mean? It just life's precious and short. Hug your loved ones and tell them you love them, because you never know. And take that opportunity now. Don't wait until it's too late. And I know it's a bit of a weird and somber message to finish this one on, but given everything that's happened over the last few weeks and everything that people are going through, it's an important message to carry through. I'd rather people do it now before it's too late.
Awesome.
Cheers, Murf.
Well, run us out,
thanks,
Murf.
Wrap it up, Dan.
Thanks for joining us, Alex.
No worries. Take care.
We haven't looked at any ADP steals by round. We'll get to that one day. I've really enjoyed that. Alex joining us. Stacey for your questions. Anyone else listening in, it's been great fun. We will see you next week. Buy the playbook. It's available on Amazon. And Murf, shut us down and away we go.
Yeah, so thanks for that. Wardy was great. I love that show because we didn't know what was coming, and I think we learned a lot and got some process out there, and I thought it was a really good pod. So I hope people enjoyed it. We'll do another of these open mics. We'll probably plan it a bit more in advance, and just if people want to come on, we'll try and schedule some stuff and get you on. But Wardy never been on before, and had such a great time. So I'm glad he got to do it, and I'm glad he got to spend as much time as he did. But we'll do it again. And until next week, Rush Nation, hug those loved ones, enjoy your drafts, and don't forget, as always, keep rushing.